NASA pioneered this back in the 1990s. And during the missions, they were experimenting with naps for their astronauts. And what they found was that naps of little as 26 minutes improved mission performance by 34% and improved daytime alertness by 50%. And it birthed what was then called the NASA nap culture throughout all terrestrial NASA staff during that time period. So it's long been known that naps can have a benefit. Naps, however, can have a double-edged sword. There is a dark side to naps. And it comes back to our story of adenosine and sleep pressure. The longer we're awake, the more of that sleep pressure adenosine that we build up. But what I didn't tell you is that when we sleep, the brain gets the chance to essentially clear out that adenosine. And after about 16 hours of wakefulness, and then after about 8 hours of sleep seems to be able to allow the brain to decrease its adenosine levels back to normal. And so naturally we should start to wake up, which also aligns with your circadian rhythm, and those are two separate processes. But with about 8 hours of good quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours for the average adult, we are free of all of that adenosine. We've evacuated it essentially out of the brain, and we wake up naturally feeling refreshed. The reason that naps can be potentially dangerous is that when you nap, you are essentially opening the valve on the pressure cooker of sleep pressure. And some of that sleepiness is lost by way of the nap. So for some people, and not all people, and you're a great example of this, some people, however, if they are struggling with sleep at night and they nap during the day, it makes their sleep problems even worse. So for people with insomnia, we typically advise against napping. And the advice is if you can nap regularly and you don't struggle with sleep at night, then naps are just fine. But if you do struggle with sleep, stay away from naps. If you are going to nap, try to limit your naps, try to cut them off a bit like sort of caffeine, maybe, 8 to sort of 12 hours, maybe not that, far off, maybe sort of 7 to 6 hours is a good rule of thumb. Try not to nap essentially late in the afternoon. And if you do take a nap and you want to maintain you don't want to have that grogginess hangover that can happen after a full night of sleep for the first hour, try to limit it to about 20-25 minutes. And that way you don't go down into the very deepest stages of sleep, which if I wrench you out of with an alarm, then you just kind of you almost feel worse for the first hour after the nap.
I've definitely experienced that if I oversleep. Certainly if the sun goes down during my nap and I wake up and overall lighting conditions have changed, I find it very hard to jolt myself back into the evening, and it can screw me up. Yeah. So I try and keep those naps pretty brief. And I should say, I'm very happy to hear you mention individual differences and why some people might want to nap and other people might not want to nap. I have a colleague, Leechin Low, who'll be familiar to many neurobiologists, but who's an absolutely spectacular scientist, member of the National Academy, Howard Hughes investigator, just a phenom, and has a ton of energy. But years ago, I learned that he always takes a nap in the afternoon, so much so that when he travels to give seminars at other universities, he will tell his post-lunch host, whoever it is that he's supposed to meet with, may I have your office for 30 minutes of our sometimes 30-minute discussion or 60-minute discussion, because I like to take a nap. And he does that and then gives his talks are typically in the afternoon in academic culture. And he describes the effect of the nap for him, these short naps in the afternoon, being so profound for his productivity. That's actually what inspired me to start feeling okay about my desire to nap. Yeah. And so I think for me, that was great vindication for those that might feel guilty about wanting a nap. But I take to heart your note about avoiding naps if you have trouble falling and staying asleep, because I think that I have family members who also, if they nap, they're a wreck. They can't sleep.
Yeah, I think it's just, we've often been very pro-sleep, we as sort of the sleep community. So I think it's good to always point out these potential dark sides of any aspect. But you're absolutely right. No one should feel guilty about getting the sleep that they need. And I think that's been one of the big problems in society. Society has stigmatized sleep with these labels of being slothful or lazy. And we're almost embarrassed, to tell colleagues that we take a nap.